Good day, everybody. Matthew from Captive Audience Comics here. Today we have a very cool book that we're going to be prepping for pressing. So we're doing all the review of the book and the dry cleaning in order to get it ready to go into the humidity chamber and then go into the press. This is a very exciting book. It's not a super high grade book, but it doesn't really matter when you have one of these. Having that book in any grade is going to be nice. And this book is complete, has no spine splits that we know of. We're going to take a quick flip through the book, make sure we don't notice any interior damage. Normally, obviously, when books come to us for cleaning and pressing, we ask people, make sure your book is complete, whatever. Obviously, on high value books, we're checking anyways, but on like quick press modern stuff, we're not doing full checks of every page and everything unless the customer requests it. So, quick evaluation of this book. Cover is complete, front and back. Staples are attached. Cover is fully attached. We'll go to the center. Staples are attached at the center. And we're going to do a quick count of the pages before and after the staples. So we got 1, and we're checking for any damage in here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 before the staples, and I'm sure we're going to have 8 after the staples as well. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, book's complete. Nothing's missing now. It looks like it's like, you can see this gap here. It looks like it's kind of detached. It's not. It's because the staples are driven through the front at an angle. They're not done in squarely. So basically, we're going to do standard dry cleaning. Now, the front doesn't have any large white areas, so we're going to start with some smaller erasers first. As you guys know, we always start largest and go smallest because that's the most efficient use of our time. But there's no really big white areas on the front. So we're going to go through with our small erasers, clean up the whites, and then we'll go through with like an absorbing sponge and see if we can't take some of the grime off of the yellowy areas. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what we can do. So we'll start, I think probably the 2 mil and the 1 mil on the front is going to be good enough. I'm just going to try to work off to the side here so you guys can still see what I'm doing here, but nothing crazy. Again, light pressure, right? We're not trying to take all the dirt off in one pass. And I'll come back with the 1 mil and get into the areas where this 2 mil eraser is going to be a little big for, but I just like to get as much as I can with the 2 mil first, wherever it's going to fit. Not a lot of places where that's going to fit in here, but definitely like in the shoulder, pulp here, and across the arm, the white highlighting here, the top of the muscles. That's pretty wide. We can use 2 mil most of that. Same thing up in here. We can use the 2 mil in here, and you'll see that I sort of erase and I follow the shape of the white area, and I stay away from being right close to the edge of the color because this book has a very large amount of wear in the gloss. So if we were to accidentally get onto the color, especially the dark there, we could very easily take a little bit of color off. Now, in a book like this, it's already going to be a lower grade book. It's probably not going to affect the grade of the book, but obviously you don't want to introduce any additional damage to a book, even if it's not going to affect the grade. We want this to look as good as we can for the client. So now I've gone to the 1mm, and we're just going to get in between all this stuff in here, anywhere that we can get this light pressure, especially up here. You can see there's a lot of creases in the paper up in here. Want to make sure that we're keeping the paper snug and in place with our left hand, so that the paper won't shift as we go in with the eraser, and keep the pressure light. Better to take a little more time on a book, a little more passes, than try to get in there super fast. Now, there is some loose paper edges here. You can see down like right in here by the knuckles. Maybe I'll show it to you guys here. You can see that little piece of paper there that's folded over, and this piece of paper over here. I'm not going to fold those back over now when the paper's dry. I'm going to humidify that first, and then fold it over when it's a little more pliable before we press it. And worst case scenario, if I have to do a little tiny touch up of some dirt on that piece after, I'll see what I can do. But I were to try to put that piece back into place right now, likely it's just going to fall off the book. So we're just going to take our time on that and wait. There's a lot of this book has a lot of, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's like almost like ink has like rubbed through from the other cover, is rubbed into the white, and it's more saturated the paper. You can see that the whites aren't like, they're not like super crisp. They're kind of faded and muted, and a lot of that stuff is it's in the paper. I don't know if it's dirt that absorbs in the paper or inks that move around, but that's not going to come out, perfectly crisp. But we definitely want to get as much of that off as we can. We can already see in the jaw here that a lot of that dirt in the jawline came off very nicely. All the little white area folds the cloth up in here. We just want to follow the direction of the area that's white. So if you have like radiating creases in the cloth, you want to follow along in that same direction when you are doing your erasing. Down in here, good. We want to get a little closer to the edges than we got before. And you always want to do your dry cleaning, obviously before humidification and pressing. If you try to do a little spot dry cleaning after humidification, moist paper or damp paper is weak paper, and you're much more likely to damage the paper fibers or make a tear or wear a hole in. There's a little bit of cover pull right here. You can see it right in there. It's like a little bit of pull off the cover. It's not a hole. It's not worn through the cover, so that's good. But something has pulled a tiny bit of that cover off in the past, which is, it's unfortunate, but it happens. These old books. This is a book that obviously was read multiple times, looks like, from the way that the spine has this additional fold inside the edge of the spine. But it still has held together structurally well. This, by the way, is a book where some people might be like, oh, you should page lighten that because the whites are muted. This is a case where if you tried to do any page lightening on this, especially any kind of chemical lightening, you are almost certainly going to get a restoration color cleaned cover, because the rest of the colors are so muted. If you lighten this up and then you make those whites look super bright, it's gonna look unnatural. It's gonna look out of place. And as soon as it doesn't look natural and it looks out of place, that is what's flagging all these books with cover clean. So obviously we want, we don't do that anyways. We don't do chemical treatments on book. Sometimes we'll do a chemical free photo bleaching where we literally just use ultraviolet light to help reduce fading. It doesn't always work. Sometimes it doesn't work at all. But sometimes you can reduce like tan lines and stuff like that with that. But we don't do any peroxide treatments. We don't do any of that stuff. We just dry clean it and then just use natural, but UV, and we mask off the areas of paper where we don't want to have any effect. So we're only working on the hand edges. It's something that can be helpful when you have tan lines right along the edge, especially on the back cover where it's normally super white. There's a tan line. That tan line sticks out. Sometimes you can do something with that. Now, okay, so we've gone over the white, and I'm just gonna take my absorbing sponge, my little rubber sponge here, and I'm just gonna see if I can lightly reduce some of these black marks on these yellows. Obviously, we got to be careful. Can't be doing this very hard. We're really just looking to see if sometimes this dirt is just sitting right on top of the paper, in which case you can go ahead and at least reduce it. Like this down here has helped. There was a little darker color stain mark here. I can still just see it, but it looks better, so we're going to stop right there. Same thing over here. There's like a little crease that's collected some dirt right in here. We are lightly going to see if we can't clean this little yellow area up a little bit. And being careful not to get too close to the edge, because even though this book, is in good shape structurally, we certainly don't want to be moving too close to that edge where we can potentially cause, a little micro tear or something over there. And it happens. I mean, when you clean books, as often as we do, there's going to be times where stuff happens. Sometimes the paper is so weak that, you just even touch it with a light eraser and something might separate, especially old creases that are really sharp where the paper's super fatigued. You got to be really careful with those. And sometimes no matter how careful you are, something can still happen. So, okay, that's pretty good. And I think we're just going to do a little light go over here in the title box just to make sure that none of this is, there's none of this surface dirt is left behind. And again, we'll give the whole cover a buffing with the cotton round as well afterwards, just in case there's any lingering surface hazing, I call it. You can feel it on the book. It's almost like this super light film that collects over time on the books, which we want to make sure that we get rid of. It's pretty good. And we want to do the same thing over here. I want to make sure that these yellows don't have surface dirt on them if possible. Okay, so there's a little tiny stain line in here, probably an old Tide line. See if you guys can get it. So you can see this little line right here. Might have had some water damage in the past. That's like an edge of a stain or something. So, okay, so now we're gonna move on to the back. Now, if you've seen more of our videos before, let me see if I can zoom this in a little bit more for you guys. We like to start with a slightly larger. Now this is a piece. I mean, this eraser wasn't this small when I started, but I always like to work around the outside first, and then come back. So I just work my way around where the lettering, the outside of the lettering. Okay, especially as we get into the spine here. And as we get to this corner here, we're going to use the eraser towards the edge and towards the corner. We don't want to go back and forth or in a circle and then catch this edge. So we're just hitting that spine there, because that's where most of your dirt's going to collect. It's going to be right along the spine or in this little swale, which has worn into the paper here, okay? So I'm not going to get too close to the lettering. I'll come back after with a smaller eraser, but we just want to get as much as we can off with this larger eraser first. Then we come back through. So I just work my way down the spine. I use a variety of angles, little tiny circles, a little back and forth, one way direction. I try to mix it up so that it won't matter in a book like this, but sometimes when you use erasers, you'll leave a little hazing behind, and by not using the same direction and everything all the time, it makes it a lot easier to buff out that hazing afterwards. Same thing here. We're just gonna work towards the edges. Now here you'll see there's like a little tear here. Okay, so we want to make sure that when we erasing near the tear, we're erasing in the same direction as the tear, like in line with the tear. Obviously not going across the tear. Okay, so over in this area, maybe I can do a little back and forth here in one direction, but we're going to go towards another little tiny tear right there. Want to make sure that we work this towards the edge where those anywhere close to those tears, because we don't want to make them worse. We don't want to make them longer. We don't want to accidentally pull a piece off. Okay. Most of this discoloration of the paper over here is literally just that's just like discoloration in the paper itself. Okay, not actually like surface dirt. This sort of speckling in the paper. Okay, yeah, like this in here. That's the paper. We don't have to worry. We don't have to worry about that. That's not surface dirt. Okay, so now stuff like that is stuff where could potentially affect your paper, your owl paper color index, like white, off white, cream, all that kind of stuff, because that's just what happens with paper over time. But that's not going to affect your grade. It might affect your paper color, but it's not going to affect. So again, we're just going along the edges here, making sure that when we clear our eraser shavings, we do it away, like from the center of the book towards the edge. Same thing, you don't want to be wiping eraser shavings off your book and ripping your book. Now, if a book is really brittle, and this book is not, if a book is really brittle, you might want to actually use a super soft, fuzzy paintbrush and sweep it away with that. You really just have to sort of do an analysis of the book and what the book, what you think the book can handle. And the back of this book really isn't dirty in like all over. It's just has dirt in spots that, same spaces where you would imagine the dirt to collect, high spots, ridges around the spine. There's a little bit of dirt in here. So actually probably isn't even dirt. This is probably just ink transfer, the lettering. Over time, when these books are, in bags and there's have a little bit of movement, and the lettering moves across the board, you'll get some ink transfer to your board, and then that again is sliding across your book, and you get this sort of transfer other parts of the book. So again, I'm using the larger eraser in the areas where I know it'll fit, and then I will go back with the smaller erasers, and we will make them those spots look better after. Same thing in between lettering here, where there's a gap at the end of a paragraph. I'll use the larger eraser here to reach what I can, and then we'll use the smaller one. Okay, so I'm also going to bring in my, this is like my 4 mil or 5 mil. I'm not sure what the actual measurement is, but this one is a little bit wider, and it's just good for getting into gaps in between paragraphs where we don't need to have a super small one. Back to my 2 mil to get the spot between the lines here where we've got the ability to get in there and clean them up. I do see some people use like an electric eraser. You can actually get like an eraser like this, but it's like electric. I don't know, it vibrates or it spins or something like that. I don't like them. Personally, I find that you lose the feel. Obviously between the eraser and the paper, and you really got to be careful what kind of paper you're using that on, because you're introducing some pretty significant risk of damage to the paper. And really, I mean, you still have to move that mechanical eraser around, so it's not like it's moving around the paper on its own for you. So, but I guess if you've got a really good hand for those, maybe they might be good on areas where there's a large open white area, and the book is very robust and it can take the extra pressure. Okay, I could, I could see that. I just think there's some pretty limited applications of where that's going to be handy. Okay. Again, hands. We washed our hands with soap and water. We cleaned the oils off our hands before we did this. Okay, I'm not wearing gloves. I want to be able to feel the paper. I want to be able to feel if there's any kind of weird hazing or different feel in the paper. I like to be able to get a good grip with my fingers on the paper if I want to hold the paper in one hand to make sure that nothing moves. I'm going like this in a small area. That's a personal preference. Whatever works for you. I don't bring them unless it's a super glossy cover, where it doesn't even matter how clean your hands are; it's going to leave fingerprints all over it. In which case, I wear gloves for that. Sometimes if a cover is like super brittle, and paper could potentially actually stick to your fingers, then I might wear that, but very rare. Okay, so now I'm gonna take a closer look at this, and now all I'm looking for is any little spots where I might want to do a little extra touch with the small 1 mil one here, or this book get sent for humidity. Now in an area like this in here, in between the letters, there's kind of an area that has a little bit of hazing between. Can't really do a lot with that, but we can try to break it up. So I find what's helpful is if you end up with a color smear or a dirt or something that goes through the lettering, if you can just break that up so you can go between the rows and kind of break up that line and make it look less noticeable, then when you're looking at it, because it's broken up, it doesn't jump out at you as being that bad. It's still, all the junk is still going to be in behind the letters, but your eyes almost like blend it together behind the letters, and you don't even notice. And really, that's what we're going for. We're going for visual appeal to make the book look as good as it can. Okay. I think we are good here, folks. So we've gone ahead, we've done all the dry cleaning. We haven't lost any pieces. We're going to humidify the book before we work on these little folded pieces here. And then when that's done, then we can get those back folded over flat. So next step is it'll go into the humidification chamber, make it nice and supple. We'll fold these down, and then it'll go into the press. And we'll make sure we include some photos of this after the fact. And like as you can see, it's not super bad. Obviously, yeah, it's got it's got lots of little wear all over it, but there really isn't anything too bad. There's kind of an old, you can see it there. It's kind of it's not really a fold or a crease, but an indent in here. So we'll get all that taken care of. And what we'll do is once that's done, we'll take some photos and we'll put them right in here for you. Hopefully, you guys can really see the difference in the book by seeing those photos. And the customer is going to be happy, and we'll get it off to CGC and see how it goes. So everybody, have a great day, and thanks for your time.